The first thing Anne did after her rebirth was to unplug the internet cable at home. Her gaming-obsessed husband, noticing the connection was down, instantly flew into a rage. He immediately grabbed Anne, determined to drag her out to find a repairman. But unexpectedly, her mother-in-law suddenly stopped Anne, shouting incessantly that she needed her medicine. Left with no choice, and pulled out her phone to contact the repair service, while instructing her husband to fetch the medicine for his mother. Her husband brought the herbal decoction over with obvious impatience. Unexpectedly, after drinking it, his mother soon began gasping for breath. She then accused Anne of secretly mixing alcohol into the medicine to poison her. It turned out that in her previous life, the mother-in-law had become paralyzed after a car accident. To allow her husband and sister-in-law to work without worry, Annie voluntarily quit her job and stayed home to care for her mother-in-law wholeheartedly. Yet on this day, as Annie fed her mother-in-law the medicine as usual, the elderly woman suddenly vomited it out violently and loudly accused Annie, furiously demanding why she had laced the medicine with alcohol. Hearing this, Annie was utterly shocked. She knew perfectly well her mother-in-law was severely allergic to alcohol. She wouldn't even use cooking wine in meals. How could she possibly have mixed alcohol into the medicine? What shocked and even more was that her husband and sister-in-law, who were rarely home, immediately appeared at the house and began berating and cursing at her. The commotion drew a crowd of neighbors. Now Anne's reputation as a wicked daughter-in-law was cemented. At first, Anne thought it was just an accident, but who could have imagined that a few days later, while pushing her mother-in-law out for a walk, the old woman suddenly insisted on listening to the radio and couldn't persuade her otherwise and had to go home to fetch it. When she returned with the radio, her sister-in-law Amy intercepted her midway. Amy snatched the radio, accusing Anne of abusing her mother-in-law. In front of everyone, she played a recording from the radio. The recording was filled with Anne's abusive screams directed at her mother-in-law. The neighbors, upon hearing it, were filled with righteous indignation. Before Anne could even explain, they pushed her into the lake and so Anne drowned. Fortunately, the heavens took pity and granted Anne a second chance. She was reborn, returning to the very day her mother-in-law first framed her, gazing at her mother-in-law's hypocritical, affected face, and silently vowed that this time, she would make her reap what she sowed. When it was time for her mother-in-law to take her medication, and deliberately unplugged the home's internet cable. Then, under the pretense of arranging repairs, she had her husband fetch the medicine from the kitchen. As Anne had anticipated, her mother-in-law suffered an allergic reaction shortly after taking the medication. Just then, Amy burst into the house with a group of neighbors, rushing in without a moment's delay. Without asking any questions, they accused Anne of having a wicked heart. Knowing full well her mother was allergic to alcohol, she deliberately laced the medicine with liquor. Hearing this, Annie immediately confronted her husband, demanding an explanation. After all, he was the only one who had touched the medicine bowl. Annie claimed her husband had delayed bringing the medicine to his mother because he was playing video games, but that hardly justified lacing her medicine with alcohol. Just as her husband opened his mouth to protest, the neighbors suddenly stepped forward. They declared they'd witnessed him personally delivering the medicine at the door. Now it was clear, who else but the husband could have poisoned her. The husband was utterly speechless. He frantically shook his mother, demanding she wake up and reveal the truth, but she showed no response. In a fit of rage, he violently slammed her against a chair. Under his violent shaking, his already weakened mother, already frail from her allergy, was soon beaten to the brink of death. The neighbors, unable to bear the sight, quickly summoned the neighborhood security chief. After learning the full story, the chief took the husband straight to the enforcement team without a word. Seeing her son taken away, the mother desperately tried to explain to Annie that her son had not harmed her. Annie only comforted her, urging her to rest well, assured her the enforcement team would see justice done. The next day, Anne arrived as usual to deliver medicine to her mother-in-law, but the old woman suddenly complained of severe chest tightness, asking Anne to push her out for fresh air, determined to uncover what secret her mother-in-law was hiding, and quickly pushed her to the park, just like in her past life. Midway there, the old woman insisted on listening to the radio. Hearing this, Anne immediately turned back home to fetch it. When she returned with the radio and turned it on, it indeed played a recording of her abusing her mother-in-law. To avoid alerting them, Anne quietly swapped out the tape and brought the radio back to the park. By then, her sister-in-law Amy had been waiting there for some time. Seeing Anne approach, Amy snatched the radio from her hands and publicly accused her of abusing her mother-in-law, declaring the radio as proof. Hearing Amy's accusations, Anne flew into a rage, shouting that she was lying through her teeth. Amy then turned on the radio, but just as she thought, her scheme was about to succeed. Unexpectedly, the next moment, opera music blared from the radio. Hearing this, the neighbors unanimously dismissed Amy's claims as nonsense. After all, everyone had witnessed Annie's devoted care for her mother-in-law during this period. In contrast, Amy hadn't been seen once since the mother-in-law's car accident. Though Amy was the mother-in-law's adopted daughter, her behavior was utterly heartless. With the neighbors' strong support, and decided to call the police immediately. But unexpectedly, Amy suddenly stopped Anne, claiming she had video evidence of and abusing her mother-in-law. The neighbors watched and saw it was true. Even the clothes were identical, and the voice was unmistakably Anne's, and looked utterly bewildered, clueless about what was happening. Amy watched and with a look of triumph